Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here today, and I just want to say thank you in particular to those that invited me, maybe wisely or unwisely. That's Baroness Udin and Tasmina Ahmed Sheikh. Thank you very, very much. Well, there's so much I could speak about today because I was given a very wide brief. I could centre on diversity. When I came into the House of Lords, I was the only black lord out of 1,800. And the youngest. And I was scared, I have to be frank with you. I mean, how was I going to cope with this? On my first day in the House of Lords, I was in a reception in the Chumley room downstairs, and an elderly Viscount came up to me and said, could you get me a gin and tonic, old boy? And so I got him the gin and tonic, and he said, thank you, my good man. Another lord came over and said, Lord Taylor, are you settling in? And the Viscount started to topple. I thought, my first day in the House of Lords and I've killed a Viscount. He said, I'm so sorry, I thought you were the waiter. No, I'm not the waiter. Well, why did you get me the drink? Because I was going there anyway. You see, I had to think very quickly. Do I react in anger by saying, don't you know who I am? Or do I try and engage with him by becoming friends in some way? And you know, that elderly Viscount, who really knew nothing about the black community, knew nothing about diversity, became one of my biggest supporters over the next 10 years. So there's a lesson to be learned there. There is only one race, the human race. But, you know, democracy is not inherited. It was said earlier today. It has to be created. Matthew 5, verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers. Not blessed are the peacekeepers. Blessed are the peacemakers. You have to make it. You have to create it. And that's really my theme today. And you may be wondering, well, hang on, why is he talking about crypto? Well, it's because, in my opinion, when you talk about cultural diplomacy, it must be seen in the context of financial and economic power. You're all familiar with the terms first world, second world, third world. When you're in the third world, it's much more difficult to argue for equality when it comes to diplomacy. But when you have economic and financial power, they listen. Why do you think, whether you like him or loathe him, Trump is ruling the world at the moment? Because of economic power. And that's why I've chosen today to focus more on finance, because finance is changing from analog to digital. And it's something that we have to understand. We can't just say, well, respect me because I'm black. You know, as my mother used to say, being black is not a profession. We have to earn that respect. It's skills that pays the bills. Now, I was foolish enough to put my presentation on PowerPoint, and I'm told that some of the screens actually don't work. But bear with me. I also need to caution you and warn you that some of my slides contain music. And you may be thinking, what? Is this a rock concert? No, it's because it's a warm room and it's 3 o'clock and I don't want you to fall asleep. So hopefully the music will help in that regard. So crypto revolution or regulation, the reason I asked that basic question is because we are definitely going through a revolution. There's no doubt about it. The Stone Age did not end because man ran out of stone. He just found different ways of doing things. And AI, crypto, blockchain, the metaverse, they're all connected. They're part of this revolution. So what do? Do we just let it run wild? Or do we throw regulation at it? I don't think it's either or. It's a balance. If we over-regulate, we'll stifle innovation. But if we don't regulate, we're in trouble. You know, when the motor car was invented, there were no traffic lights. So there were accidents. So we had to invent the traffic light. So that's my basic tenet today, that the whole point about cultural diplomacy must be seen within the context of financial and economic strength. That's the main point I'm trying to make. So who am I? Well, my father was the first black man to play cricket for Warwickshire in 1948. I was vice chairman of the British Film Board for 10 years. So I was actually paid to watch films. It was a tough job. Somebody had to do it. I was the first black chancellor in Britain. Chancellor of Bournemouth University, and I have the honour of being the honorary vice chairman of the Parliamentary AI group, along with Baroness Ordin. So that's the who I am. That's my background. Yes. And we need some volume, Callum, if we can get some volume. So that's telling you who I am. Now, we're living in a world where the sterling, the pound, is no longer ruling the waves. Britannia rules the waves, is the old phrase. The world is changing now. We have different types of currencies. There are at least 20,000 bitcoins of various descriptions: Tether, Litecoin, Dogecoin. I mean, Dogecoin was started as a joke. It became a multi-million-dollar currency. And yet there's still very little regulation. But this is changing the nature of trade and finance. And for us to talk about cultural diplomacy, especially when you're talking about the Commonwealth countries, we need to learn how to have economic power and to be part of this new way of trading by not just using the pound. Stable coins are perhaps the most significant of all. They're linked to the dollar, also linked to the gold market. The Genius Act is probably the first legislation that America has produced in relation to bitcoins. And so it's a recognition by America that we need to have some sort of guardrails when it comes to this new economy. So we've got no volume on that, but the reason why it's showing you some muscle there is that stablecoin of all the bitcoins is the one that is linked to the dollar. In other words, anybody that invests in stablecoin has the confidence of knowing that if anything goes wrong, they can get their money back because it's linked to the dollar. And that's the reason why stablecoins is perhaps the one that's being given the most confidence. The problem with technology, everybody in this room is probably very familiar with technology, but out there in the real world, a lot of people are still fearing technology. They don't really understand it. They think, well, is it something to be feared, or do we have faith in it? Their image of technology is almost like something from Hollywood. And you may think, Hollywood? What relevance is that? Well, I can tell you, I spent 10 years watching films, regulating films, censoring films, and films have huge influence on the way people think about the modern world. And a lot of people, especially in the older generation, think that this is what technology is, a monster that's going to devour you, that's going to steal money from your bank account. And so we have to be sure, as people in Parliament and those who are business leaders, that we reassure and explain that technology is a tool to help us, not to be frightened of. The other danger is that technology is seen as a god, something to be worshipped. It's bigger than humans. And Elon Musk has said that, and I disagree with him, that technology eventually will destroy us all. And again, Hollywood has presented films which show this, and if I can just get this one to work. You see, technology, you see? Sometimes it works, but here again is some image that people have of technology, that it's something that is here to destroy us, something that is actually against us. And I suggest to you that this is something that is a remaining challenge, that we have to reassure people that it's a tool to benefit. It's a way of, for example, of bridging the gap between the have-nots and the have-yots. It's not just for those who are rich and wealthy. It's for a single mother on an East End housing estate that can actually help her life. And I suggest to you, we still have a long way to succeed in that. But one of the lessons of history is that we don't learn lessons from history. We forget old school. We think, oh, great, we've got AI, Bitcoin, let's forget history. No. We must remember the past. My good friend William Shakespeare couldn't be here today, but he's writing a book, some play called Hamlet. I mean, a play about a cigar? That's never going to work. But anyway, he sends his apologies, but there I am, shaking hands with William Shakespeare. But the eagle-eyed amongst you, we've got sound, may observe that the black man in the little video started off looking like me and then ended up not looking like me, because AI does not do well in recognizing black and female faces, and that's a very important point. It's not the end of it. We're still on a journey, and there are issues in the inner cities where people are being stopped by cameras, unfairly. So these are still things that we need to address. But my point here is that we must not forget old school, the old lessons. And the whole point about AI is, yes, it will actually take jobs. It will take many of the admin jobs, the filing, the boring jobs. What it will do is free up our opportunities to be more creative. And that's what I find so exciting. And of course, it's creating a revolution when it comes to healthcare. Well, it's really the mobile phone, I think, that's probably started this revolution. When you think of the mobile phone, it is like, if you like, pulling a rabbit out of a hat. You can access your bank account. You can make investments. You can find out how my football team, Aston Villa, is doing. At the click of a second, you can get information. It has changed the way we live our lives. But there are cautions, and we have to be aware of the potential pitfalls. And there have been some documentaries on this particular issue, talking about the rise and rise of Bitcoin, and explaining what the pitfalls may be. And one of the pitfalls is that this clicker won't work. But you see, again, that's technology. So we'll see if we can come through this, can we? This is what's called an intermission, where you get your popcorn and your ice cream.
Where is the popcorn?
Well, Tasmina will supply
We're not allowed in. We're not allowed in.
Yeah, it looks as if it's failed on me, but that's not a problem. One of the lessons that I have learned through this amazing technology is this: that each person in this room has AI. It's called actual intelligence. Because we must remember that AI is artificial intelligence. It's data-driven. And there are things, and I was going to explain that in the following slides, that there are pitfalls along the way. Every time an email is sent, it's data. The blockchain is data. Data has to be stored in data centers. Data centers consume a lot of energy. They heat the water in a data center to an amazingly high degree, and water needs to cool down. But in order to have a data center, you need planning permission. And people don't want those ugly data centers in their lovely patch. So these are issues that we're not even talking about in Parliament, but we will. Where are we going to put all these data centers? How are we going to look at the whole energy question when we have the highest energy prices in Europe? These are issues coming down the track. Now, I'm a great optimist because each person in this room has actual intelligence, but you are also unique. You have unique DNA. It was my bill in 1997 that created the first DNA database. And that has gone on to solve literally thousands of illnesses, and it's been used in terms of research and looking at various like dementia and so forth. And it emphasizes the uniqueness of the human being. Unique DNA. Your iris is unique. Your fingerprint is unique. I have twin daughters, Kelsey and Katie. They are professional models. They take after their mother, thank God. But they're identical. I can't even, decide which is which some days. I think one has a little dimple on the chin. And yet they have different DNA. So each one of us has uniqueness, and each one of us can make a contribution. Now, if you multiply that to a nation, that is when diversity comes in. I've been, during my time as a member of the House of Lords, I've been to so many business events where I'm the only black person in the room. And I know Baroness Woodin will testify to this, that so many of the speeches in the House of Lords will almost ignore us, really, ignore diversity. And then you pop up and remind people that not everyone in the world is white. And it's not because we're against anybody else, it's because we want to make the whole stronger. I was the Special Advisor to the Home Secretary back in 1991, and then I noticed that Cheltenham was advertising for a candidate. And so I put my name down, and I think there were something like 250 applicants, and I was put on the shortlist. And the agent, Tony Fletcher, rang me and said, John, we're really looking forward to meeting you in Cheltenham. I have no idea what you look like, but I'm looking forward to... And I thought, well, you have a bit of a surprise when you do, see. Because you see, in those days, you didn't need to put a photograph on the CV. And my name is Taylor. It's not John... Singh. It's not John Sheikh. It's John Taylor. So they assumed I was white. So I turn up in Cheltenham. It was a foggy day in February. Knock on the door. Tony Fletcher's there. And he looks at me sort of, yes? John Taylor. John Taylor. I've come for the interview. I'm on the short list to be the MP. John Taylor. You're John Taylor. I didn't realise you were from Birmingham. He just avoided saying black. Anyway, I go in and I speak, and we're driving back, and I said to my wife, this is ridiculous. What was I doing? I come to Cheltenham. There are no black people in Cheltenham. What am I doing? This is stupid. And she said to me, John, I watched their faces. They were listening. You weren't talking about Malcolm X. You weren't talking about respect the black man. You were talking about the A40, housing, unemployment, getting investment into Cheltenham. That's why I think you're going to be selected. And I was selected, which was fantastic. But then I nearly caused a riot because people weren't expecting a black man. And it really changed my life, because it was really the first time in my life that I really understood that you don't judge people by the colour of your skin or your background. It's something that has stayed with me. I remember I lost by 1,000 because it was a marginal seat. And I remember that one of our supporters came up to me and he was crying. He was distraught. I thought he was going to have a breakdown. He was a retired general in the army, white, and he was the one that took it personally that I'd lost. So again, let us not judge people by their appearance or their background. Anyway, life goes on. I returned to being a barrister, and then I was offered a position at BBC Radio 2. Now, in those days, BBC Radio 2 was the biggest radio station in Europe. My champion was a guy called Terry Wogan, who you can maybe remember, and it was fantastic. And, I had an audition, and they said, John, good news for you, good news. You're going to have your own show. My own show? Yeah. What time? 4 o'clock. I thought, 4 o'clock, drive time. No, 4 a.m. 4 a.m. Well, I thought, my mother's going to be listening anyway. So anyway, I did it, and yes, people were listening, and it grew, and eventually I got my prime time. So things went on from there. But again, another lesson I learned. A lady, and this is before emails, before internet, a lady wrote to me to say, John, I love your programs. I just love the music and everything, but I don't know what you look like. Can you send me a photograph? Oh, no. So I got my Radio 2 photograph, sent it to her. She wrote back and said, John, this is amazing. I didn't realise you were black. So am I. Yeah. So again, I made assumptions about the people who were listening to Radio 2. So the things that I've learned, and I'm coming to a conclusion now, is that AI is fantastic. It's a revolution. But let us treasure us who have actual intelligence. Human beings, we're all unique. and the collective skills we have is amazing. The reason why Great Britain is great is because of immigration. It really is. People coming to this country to make it great. If you took away immigrants from the NHS, you wouldn't have an NHS. Yes. There are those that say, look, you can't get a doctor's appointment because of all these immigrants. Half the doctors are immigrants. You know, so we have to be very wary of the messages that are put out. But I believe in building bridges, bringing people together. Let us celebrate the AI and all the technology that we have, but most of all, let us celebrate each other. And we have to understand that cultural diplomacy is vital, but it must be seen and partnered with economic and financial strength. Thank you.
Thank you very much.